Right now, we're going to go north of the state line, and with me right now I have Deb Hauser, the Associate Director in the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, and they made a big decision this past week, their Board of Directors, in the fact that next season, both boys and girls basketball will go from quarters to halves. Deb, tell us a little bit of background on how this all started and how it happened to fall into place.
Well, a few years ago, we applied for experiment status with the National Federation to give our coaches the opportunity to try halves. And at that point, we went with two 16-minute halves. And there were several schools that tried it and liked it, but not a lot of our schools ventured into the experiment. We've talked about it for, the ensuing years, and our meeting with the coaches in April, they decided to go with a recommendation of two 18-minute halves.
And you talked about having the 16-minute halves, I think it was in 2009 or some time period like that. Right. Why did you decide to go to the 18-minute halves after that 16-minute halves?
Minnesota does it, and several of our schools play games in Minnesota. The coaches responded that they would like to have a little additional playing time, and so to kind of stay in sync with our neighbors, we opted to go and request the two 18-minute halves so that there wouldn't be any differentiation for schools choosing to play the Minnesota schools.
And I understand that Minnesota has been very successful. They're very happy with that move to halves in high school basketball.
That's what we've heard as well, and two of our members, Ashland and Superior, actually play in Minnesota's conferences for the game of basketball. So the feedback has been very positive, and we're excited and looking forward to implementation this year.
And I know you did a survey, and you got a really good response on the survey. Did that have a lot of help in making this decision easy for you guys?
I think, it was good. It's always good to have data. Right now every decision made is somewhat driven by data that you can provide, and, definitely that didn't hurt us in the decision-making process. But this has been talked about for quite a while now, and I think, people are seeing that in the non-school programs, everything is played in halves. The next level, the college level, is played in halves. Don't think there was a lot of reluctance to move in this direction. It was just a matter of when we were going to make that determination.
Did you hear there's a lot of flow of play when you do it this way? You don't have those last-second shots at the quarter breaks. Was that something that kind of was one of the things that basketball coaches seemed to like?
I believe that was a very significant part of the change to this format, because every year in our state tournament we have a game or two where someone holds the ball at the end of the quarters, and that gets everybody stirred up about, maybe implementing a shot clock, which we have talked about for many years, but there just are so many ramifications moving in that direction that this may appease those who feel that the shot clock is definitely needed.
And save some money for schools, too. They don't want to put shot clocks in or have anybody operating those as well.
Well, I think, I think people or schools, booster clubs, support groups could find the money for the hardware. I'm more concerned and have always been more concerned about finding someone qualified and knowledgeable enough to run that shot clock for all the basketball games that would be involved. And obviously at that point you're looking at also probably a paid position. But to me it's more the knowledge of the person running it, because it is, it does require someone to have a good grasp of that rule.
It's kind of funny in a way. The NCAA just changed women's basketball, where they're going from halves to quarters. Did that kind of throw a curveball into these discussions, or didn't you take that in consideration at all?
That decision came quite late this spring, and the more I was able to, try to find a rationale for it, it seems that the women's basketball folks believe that they needed to more parallel WNBA, and that was some of the rationale as to why they went to the, quarter format. There were some questions that were raised as a result of that, but it does seem that women's college still wants to be somewhat different from the men's college game, and we'll see how that works for them.
You know, you're going to do this on a one-year trial. Are you going to be kind of checking this, updating people, and asking them how they feel? And will you make a decision again next year at this time if you will continue to do this process?
That would be how it would work. Our coaches meet annually with us after the conclusion of their season, and at that point there will be some surveying done of schools and both administratively those involved and as well as the coaches to determine if this is something we want to continue with. The athletic directors in our committee process were the ones who modified it to be a one-year trial with the sense that, if this isn't something we like, we want to, reevaluate and maybe not make it a hard and fast change at this point. So I think it just made everybody a little bit more comfortable that we would go in this direction and try it for a year and then reevaluate.
And there's no vote needed by the members. That's something that you guys were allowed to do after making contact and discussing that with your board?
Yeah, we have a very elaborate committee process. It starts with our coaches, then goes through our athletic directors. We have a staff position and then an advisory council and ultimately the board of control. So the members have given the authority for these types of changes to that committee process with ultimate decision made by the board of control.
And I know the NFHS has talked about this on a national level about going to halves. Do you have any other states that are looking at going maybe to halves, and maybe did this help a little bit in making your decision a little bit easier as well?
Well, I was a member of the National Federation Basketball Rules Committee for 4 years, and I lobbied quite hard to get this changed on the national level. And there are some very strong traditionalists for high school basketball that believe that we need to stay in the quarter format. And during my term on the committee, I was not able to garner enough votes and support to get the rule changed at the national level. Our neighbor in Minnesota and then the Dakotas are playing in this kind of a format, and I believe there may be one or two other states that are doing something similar. But with the expiration of my term on the committee, our desire by our coaches to want to move in this format, it's pretty clear, or is very clear to me, that it's going to be a while probably before the nation goes in this direction. And our coaches and our schools felt that this was a good move for us to make.
Well, Deb, thanks so much for taking time, and good luck. We'll be keeping an eye on it. We do have a couple of Wisconsin schools that come south of our state line to play some basketball, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Sounds good. Thanks for your interest.
We've been talking to Deb Hauser, the Associate Director at the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association. For the StatelineSportsHub.com, I'm Dave Schmidt.